These are the days that are filled with joy and filled with laughter. There are days with too much to do, and these are the days we count the minutes until our head hits the pillow at night. Some of these days we are creative, productive, inspired, and fulfilled. On other days we feel ordinary, routine, bland, and inadequate. This is motherhood. It is everything we expected and nothing we could have ever imagined. You've hopefully already met your table leader. Your table leader is a mother at a similar point in her parenting journey as you. She'll be your guide through Momentum this year and tell you about all that Momentum has to offer. Then there are the mentor moms. This group of women has been there and done that. They provide that wisdom that you wish you knew about 5 years ago. Together with your table leader and your mentor mom, you have an amazing support system already ready for you. Then there's your head mom. Last but not least, of course, the leader of your meeting. I can tell you, no matter which Momentum meeting you're attending, you have a fantastic and tremendous mother as your leader. I just love those ladies, and I know you will too. So lean on them, get to know them. They really want to make your experience fantastic. What can you expect at Momentum this year in our meetings? Well, each meeting will focus around a topic. That topic will be presented by speakers, panels, or videos, followed up by a discussion at your table. We've spent a lot of time this year thinking of fresh new topics that are really going to be a help to your role as mom. So be on the lookout for things like batch cooking, bullying, dealing with difficult relationships in your life, and something we're calling the 40 Days of Giving Challenge. It's going to be great to learn about these topics together and then go live them out in between the meetings. So while our meetings will have lots of variety throughout the year, there is going to be one theme that weaves its way into our entire year. That theme is extraordinary motherhood. I can't even tell you how much I love that word extraordinary. Because on one hand, the day-to-day in and out routine of motherhood is extraordinary. And then in those moments when you couldn't imagine doing anything else in the world, it's extraordinary. You know, sometimes when you're in the moment of something, you just know it's going to be extraordinary, right? Back in high school, I was part of a small chamber choir. We received an invitation to sing at the Mormon Tabernacle in Salt Lake City, Utah. The Tabernacle, if you're not familiar, is one of the most beautifully acoustic places to sing in the United States. It's so rare to get an invitation to sing there that I think we were the only group of outsiders that sang there all year. So as we went into the Tabernacle and we let out those very first notes of our song, my classmates and I, we just knew we were part of something extraordinary, and the performance reflected it. In motherhood, we are lucky enough to have a lot of those extraordinary moments. I mean, think about that first moment you laid eyes on your child. It's extraordinary, right? Or what about hearing them say, "I love you, Mommy," for that very first time? It's extraordinary. What about seeing them make a good decision that you had nothing to do with? Extraordinary. And then watching them clean up their own messes without you even having to tell them you did it. It's Wait, that one hasn't happened to me yet, but when it does, it will be extraordinary. Unfortunately, in our world, there's a lot of extraordinary circumstances, and a whole lot of people just dying to make them a little more ordinary. It's hard to think about extraordinary circumstances and not think about my own mom. She's had a difficult life in a lot of ways, but in her adult life, she was faced with some extraordinarily difficult circumstances around cancer. Within a couple of years, she was an end-of-life caregiver to her two best friends who were diagnosed and ultimately died of colon cancer. Then there was the news that my grandma, her mom, also had cancer, and it was colon cancer. And if the grief from that was not enough, one day we got an unexpected call from Long Island, New York, from my uncle. He had a tumor in his lung. Biopsies revealed that the cancer had actually spread, and it was actually colon cancer that he had too. It seems so ironic, so painful, so extraordinary that one person should have to deal with that kind of loss from the same illness. So for me, one of the most intriguing things about extraordinary circumstances is that sometimes once you're back to the ordinary day-to-day grind, you kind of want to go back. A friend spent the last days of her dad's life in hospice by his side. During those days, everything about their day-to-day routine had to be rearranged. Life as they knew it was on hold. After her dad passed, someone gave her a really strange sentiment. They said, "You'll look back on these days and miss them." I mean, miss them? Of course she'd miss her dad, but miss these extraordinarily difficult circumstances? But it's true. When things are extraordinarily difficult and tough, it's at that point that you have the ability to test your faith. Everything you say you believe in is slammed in your face, and suddenly you have to depend on God's will, His perfect plan, His timing. You feel heartbroken, but closer to God than when things are just going along perfectly. Last fall, a friend was struck with a very unusual virus. The virus attacked her brain, and she was forced to live in a hospital with her eyes closed to avoid severe headaches and nausea. After she got out of the hospital, thankfully, and was recovering back to normal, in the months after, as she returned to her normal strength and the memory of that hospital trip started to fade away a little bit, she asked us for a very unusual prayer request. She asked us to pray that she would have that same passion for prayer that she did while she was lying in the hospital with her eyes closed. You see, in those extraordinarily difficult circumstances, she felt closer to God, and she missed that closeness and understanding so perfectly what her priorities in life were. Is it possible that when we're faced with extraordinarily happy or difficult circumstances, that somehow our true self can break through a little bit? In those moments, we actually become more of the woman and the mother we hope to be all of the time. This year at Momentum, we'll have the opportunity to celebrate extraordinarily happy circumstances and then support each other should we encounter extraordinarily difficult circumstances. We'll make connections that really, really matter. So, science was admittedly not my favorite subject, but I am fascinated by the human brain and how we learn. So stick with me, I'm not going to get too geeky here. But our brain is full of just trillions and trillions of these neurons. They're just hanging out there, ready to make a connection. The place where they meet is called a synapse, and in that space, a chemical reaction happens and connections are made in the brain. Only when those connections happen do we learn. I think in some way, when we can make connections with other mothers, we have a chance to learn a little more about ourselves and our role as moms. So the theme for this year is extraordinary motherhood. But we also have a power verse to pump us up throughout the year. That verse is, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength, Philippians 4:13. That verse is an awesome promise of what we can do when we put our hope in Christ instead of our own agendas. After all, the verse says, I can do all things in Christ who gives me strength. That means in our role as mothers, we can do amazing, powerful, meaningful, world-changing, and you know I gotta say it one more time, extraordinary things through Christ who gives me strength. Welcome to Momentum. This will not be an ordinary year.